So we know Brook can sing. Now we know he can do the worm. That'll make more sense later. So, chapter 1173, titled A Generation of Warriors. I really like this chapter. I like how Oda did this chapter. So first we have the cover page, which is a cover page request, and it is Usopp covering his nose in honey to lure to catch a rhinoceros beetle. So this is just adorable. This is literally Usopp pulling a Winnie the Pooh move. Usopp has coated the end of his nose with honey, and there is a stag beetle flying in, and Chopper is also there, and he sees the honey on Usopp's nose. So who's going to get to the honey first? We know that stag beetles pop up every now and then in One Piece. We know Luffy likes to try to collect them, so that's fun. Usopp kind of does too, I guess. So, thing. Into the chapter. So, at this point, we kind of get a decent look at the number of some of the other giants that have been Domi reversing, like Dory and Bragi have. They have arrived at the Western Village. We see Jarl there. We do see that he still has the sword in his head that is still very much skewered through the helmet and through his head. So we see that he has a different sword in his hand. That was something a lot of people were like, did Jarl take the sword out of his head? I do think that's going to be a little bit more of that's going to be a bigger thing when we get to it. So we see Dory and Bragi have arrived here. We see that several of the other giants that are Domi reversied have also arrived here, and they're kind of getting ready to square off against Jarl and the other warriors that are there. And like Dory and Bragi are screaming like, kill Jarl! And they just look like they're just dwarfing the size of these giant houses. The houses are giant because giants live in them, but Dory and Bragi are just dwarfing these houses so much. And Jarl's like, Dory, Bragi, it's unthinkable to see you like this. And, like, Jarl, he kind of saw the way that Harald ended up, but Jarl didn't end up with, like, the full-on horns and everything from the demonic possession. From, having to follow Emu's orders. He didn't have that. This is very much this, the country is being attacked by demons, as he said. Not wrong. And then we see from the other angle, Stanson and Hyrudine are arriving at the village with Zoro. And they're like, what's this plan of yours, Roronoa Zoro? Roronoa Zoro. I was like, you have to use his full name? But sure. And Zoro's like, first things first, is it okay if I cut those guys down? So this is in response to Zoro likes Dory and Bragi. He doesn't necessarily want to hurt them, but he understands that at this point in time they kind of have to if they're going to possibly try to stop them. So Hyrdine's like, it is, but we're up against the entire giant warrior crew. Not quite. Ormo and Kashi are not here. They are not Domi Reversied. There's a few others, but there's a lot of other ones here that have been Domi Reversied. We see a couple of them here. We'll see some more of them later on the next page. And so this is just like this. Like, yeah, there's a lot of the crew that's been that's been affected by this thing. And Stance is like, saving Elder Jarl is our top priority, but these warriors have all earned our respect. Try to spare their lives at least. Zoro doesn't want to kill Dory and Bragi or the other giants. He has a lot of respect for them. It's just they kind of need to do something, and that might end up hurting them. So we see that two of the other giants that are Domi Reversied. I couldn't find anything that were these giants' names. It's just two of the other giants that are part of the crew. And they're like, Sanson, Hyrudine. It's like, oh no, we've been spotted. Don't let them surround us. So I think they've kind of, because of, I'm assuming, the description that Kashi gave as to, don't get in between them, or you might get Domi revert, you might get, flipped as well. You might get, turned evil as well. So don't get in between them. And so they're like, hey, I was like, oh no, don't let them get around us. So we get, again, I looked couldn't find any information about if we've seen these two giants before. I'm assuming a lot of these ones are some of the ones that were on Egghead helping at the end of Egghead. So they're like, hey, did you finish your quest to unite all the giants of the world? And the other one's like, ha, yeah, right. By now they'd had to know that that's never going to happen. So it was like they're taunting Hyrule in regards to, his intention as to, this is the callback to Dressrosa, where Hyrule is there in the way that, he's stating his desire is that he wants to be the king of all of the giants, not just the giants of Elbaf, but the king of all of the giants. He wants to unite the giants around the world. And, like, we just get this, like, Hyrule and Stanza, like, there's this snapping, or just like, yeah, screw this. Yeah, go for it, Roronoa, go for it. Deal with him. Don't care. And he's like, okay, brothers, you've got it. So Zoro jumps off of Hyrule's shoulder, and he's, is like up above them. Now, Zoro cannot, fly the way that Luffy can, or skywalk the way that Sanji can, use Geppo. To the extent that they can, I guess maybe at this point in time we can just assume Zoro can do something similar enough in his own version of it. It's not that surprising of a concept, if he can. But they're like, I see, you won't get trapped between them if you approach from above. Clever move. Given the list of possible options that Zoro could have done throughout the course of this, given his past record of ideas, I mean, going up above them is a reasonable move to take. He's not getting one on either side of him in that sense of being on, like, the game board. So it's not, that type of thing. So not a bad idea. We're kind of going to see what he does in a second. And again, because we don't know exactly, there's the whole theory that, like, maybe there's part of the theory that maybe you can only be dummy reversied on the island you were born on, because, like, we saw that happen with Rox and his family, and we've seen that happen with the giants. Whereas it's like, well, if Emu could have just dummy reversied Rox way back at, Marie Joie when he made his way into the Room of Flowers, why didn't he? That would have been the simpler thing to do. It could have been like he couldn't. Emu couldn't do that. So there's, like, that theory there. And with, like, Domi being, part of the representation of, like, Domi or domicile or to return home. It's kind of that thought that was like, maybe you can only be dummy reversing on your home island. And barring us finding out something very, very major about Zoro, he wasn't born on Elbaf. But again, it might be something where it's just like Oda has to come up with clever ways, so that's not revealed yet. But, like, Zoro's jumped up into the air. And then one of the giants swings their sword down, and, like, Hyrule and Stanson both dodge, and they're like, and Hyrule's like, Stanson, let's circle around them from the sides. Roger that, Hyrule. So, and I think it is stated that, like, Stanson, he is the shipwright of the crew. I think he's also the second in command of the crew. He's the first mate under Hyrule. So now we see Zoro is, like, hopping across the giant's heads, like, jumping from one to the next. Hey! Like, what are you doing up there? Lands, jumps up much higher. And they're like, above us, that puny human. And Zoro's, preparing, and he's like, 3 sword style, secret technique. Crossing of the 6 pass. And, like, we got, like, several double page spreads to start off this chapter, so that's nice. So, we have, like, crossing of the 6 pass is what he's doing, and he's aiming this attack down at the other giants to try to see what damage he can cause of them. And Stanson's looking back at this as he's running. He's like, that's Roronoa for you. I'm like, what do you mean by that, Stanson? You have met Zoro a grand total of once prior to this. And that was 2 years ago back at Sabaody. And no offense, but Zoro didn't do very much back at Sabaody during that fight in the auction house. He didn't. I'm sorry. He didn't do that much in the fight back then. But, like, I get that. I mean, like, Hyrule's had more interaction with Zoro because, like, he, interacted with Zoro during Dressrosa and kind of saw what Zoro was capable of during everything. during all of those fights. So it is kind of this question of like, what do you mean by that stance? And you're not super familiar with Zoro, barring like, Hyrule having told you about this. I guess it's possible Stanson could have seen some of the fighting of like Zoro versus some of the pacifista, but I don't know. We'll see. And like, so Zoro's unleashed a bunch of attacks down on the other giants and caused a bit of damage to them. We don't get a full extent of what this damage is. And then Zoro is like turning his attention toward Dory and Bragi. Is like, making his way over to where they are. And they scream up at him, Rara Nara! And, they start trying to swing at him. And he's like, Dory, Bragi. And then he yells out, unbelievable, I think is what he's saying. And he is trying to attack both of them, but I think his intention is to get them to attack each other. It's like he's luring the two of them in to try to attack him to attack each other. And it works. Dory slices through... I'm sorry, I always get Dory and Bragi mixed up. I'm sorry, I love them. But Dory slices through Bragi's shield and into his shoulder. And then Bragi is slicing through Dory's shield and like also over his chest. So they're causing damage to each other. I don't think we see in this chapter whether or not that results in them being able to regenerate. Because we haven't had it fully confirmed if you are Domi Reversied, if you regenerate or if you just become a lot more durable. And in this case, Zoro essentially made them attack each other. Which, if this was the other part of his plan, we're going to chalk this up into the good plan Zoro category. Zoro's good plan, acceptable category. And Zoro's like, huh? So I don't know if this is what he planned on doing. Maybe he just wanted them to like eliminate each other's weapons as opposed to actually attacking each other in this regard. But we're going to see in a second. Dory, Yorl is shouting out for Dory and Bragi because he is worried about them. He doesn't want them to die. He cares about them, but he understands to a degree what's going on. And we see the silhouette of both Dory and Bragi, and like everybody's yelling, Chiefs! And like they're falling down, and we see like the blood coming out. So whether or not they're gonna be able to regenerate, we don't know yet in this chapter. That hasn't been confirmed one way or the other. I'm not sure yet. Cutting away from this, it's like, I like the end of the chapter, the last chapter. Zoro, I have a plan. First part of this chapter, right into Zoro's plan, as opposed to making us wait longer and longer. Right into this part of the plan. Okay. Now we're going to get caught up to where Brook is. And we're going to see where Gunko is. So, Brook did not get out of his like arrow mummification thing that he's in. He is essentially like done the worm or caterpillar or whatever his way across this part of the branch because he's on a different part of branch 8. And he's like scrunched himself along the ground to try to follow after Gunko, who he saw seemingly kind of shift and get possessed. And he has made his way to where, Imu Gunko is, where like they're flying and stuff, with the trident and everything. And Zoro has like made his way close enough to her, and he shouts out, Princess Shuri! You there, are you Princess Shuri? So I did the thing, I searched for Princess Shuri. What came up is Princess Shuri from Marvel. To be fair, I don't know if this is the official spelling yet, but I'm going to throw in the Shuri from Marvel reference. She's princess from Wakanda. She's T'Challa's little sister. Younger sister. What? You're okay. Come here. You're okay. Brook's going to have an emotional reunion. And no, you can't chew on his bones. Fine, and I'm going to stare at the window, Mommy. Yeah, you stare out the window. And so essentially, Princess Shuri. I like Shuri. What can I say? She's fun. So Brook has made his way over. He is shouting over at Gunko. And Gunko Imu, like, looks over at him. not like any emotion in this look, just like looking over at him, and then kind of like the emu is not happy, emu is not pleased in this moment kind of look. And like Brooke is like getting closer, and he's like, I can't see how you could possibly be her. I'm certain it's impossible, but it's hard to deny you're her spitting image, so I have to make sure. And still no reaction really from Gunko Emu. And Brooke is saying, even if you aren't the princess, surely you must be of her blood. If the princess were alive today, she would be nearing 80 by now, which is kind of what a lot of us thought, given the fact that we saw like young Gunko in the flashback with Harald, and that she was there at Marie Joie, 60 something years ago, when all of that happened. When Harald and Rox first met and everything. So, we saw her back then, and she didn't look like she's aged at all. She just has shorter hair in the present timeline beyond, now that she's possessed. But, she had shorter hair. So it's like, yeah, she would be nearing 80 by now, which lines up. We know that Brooke is 92. Yeah, Brooke is 92, I believe. He's old enough that he's in his 90s. He's 90 or he's 92. And so it makes sense for him to be able to be like, no, she would be much older by that now. It was like, of course she wouldn't recognize me given how much I've changed. Yeah, it's been a long time since you would have seen her, Brooke. Over 50-something years, over 60-something years, possibly over 70-something years by this point in time. Depending on how old you were the last time that you saw each other. Plus, you're a frickin' skeleton by now. Plus, you're a skeleton. So, that'll definitely do a whole thing of like, wait a second. Do I know you? I know that bone structure anywhere type of thing. So there's that. And he's still screaming. And yet, those features, the blue hair, the mismatched eye, and a connection to the Holy Land. Plus, you're fond of my music too, aren't you? And like we see like Gunko Emo floating there. We see like the part of the area burning behind her. And it's just like every single detail is a perfect match. Princess Shuri. It's like Shuri or Sherry, but we also have like Moncheri, the Tontara princess, so I don't know if Oda's trying to go with like a similar sound here or not. And Brooke is still shouting. It's like, I had hoped I'd go the rest of my life without ever having to think about you again. He's like, I owed everything to the man whose life you took, my patricidal princess, is what he calls her. And so I wanted to see if there was maybe something that Oda was trying to reference here. So I Googled whether or not there was any princesses in history famous for killing their fathers, history or mythology famous for killing their fathers, just to see if maybe there was something that popped up there. We know there's lots of sons that end up killing their fathers, or princes that kill each other. Sometimes there's a princess or a prince that will kill their sibling, depending on stuff. And I couldn't find a direct reference. I know that there's some anime where there's like something that maybe happens there, but not exactly the same thing. So I was trying to look it up, and I really wasn't finding much. The closest thing that I found that was something that I could grasp onto was Medea, the princess of Colchish, don't ask me, in Greek myth. And she is a descendant of the gods through her father. She's a descendant of Helios, the sun god. So there's a connection to the gods there. And if you want a reference for who Medea is, she is part of the myth of Jason and the Argonauts. She is the princess of the country where they have the golden fleece, because Jason's intention is to go and obtain the golden fleece. That's part of his mission, is to go and obtain the golden fleece, and bring it back. And Medea is the princess of this country, and she ends up helping him in regards to getting the fleece and in regards to escaping. In the process, in the myth, she ends up killing her brother in order to help Jason escape with the golden fleece. So there's at least that type of a reference there. There's also a Greek tragedy play based off of Medea and Jason as well that I have seen. One of my friends in high school was part of the play, so we went and saw it, and it was very, it was fun. she wasn't Medea. She was like one of the narrators type characters in the play. But it was, still fun to go see. But it's just this kind of, this was like the closest thing I could find for maybe a reference that Oda's trying to pull. I don't know exactly, but that was like the closest thing that I could find. So he's calling her a patricidal princess, which patricide means that you killed your father. Matricide is you killed your mother. Take your pick. Patricidal princess. Now, given everything that we have just gone through with the rocks, with the Harald, Loki, rocks, blah, 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 flashback. Appearances can be deceiving. Loki is not this horrible person that he was made out to be at the beginning of the arc in regards to the way that everybody called him the accursed prince and everything. Loki does not fall under that category. We have learned that. Harald was not all he appeared to be. Rox was not all he appeared to be. And there's the thought here that possibly, depending on how this plays out, because a lot of people were making it sound like the person that Gunko killed, or that Shuri killed, is a person who was very similar to the way that Shanks was to Luffy, this benefactor to him, this like his inspiration type of a thing. Now, in the little snippet of a flashback that we got with Brook and Gunko already from Gunko's perspective, when she's kind of realizing that Brook, is that you, Brook, and like running toward him, seemed to imply something very different than this part of the connection that we are seeing here from Brook's perspective. From the little bit that we saw with her, it seemed like Brook was fond of her. He was telling her, my dream is to become a pirate and everything. And now we're getting this. So he mentions a connection to the Holy Land, to Mary Geoise. So there's that possibility there. There was this thought that maybe Brook had, maybe he had gone to Mary Geoise with his king and something happened there. He knew that royal family, was a guard. Ended up interacting with like little Gunko, a couple of times, during a time frame when he was there at Mary Geoise as like a guard. And now there's of course all the fan art with like Brook is a Figarland and stuff like that. I'm like, no, I don't think so. If anything, he'd definitely be ranking higher than Garling in the Figarland family standings right now. But so there's like that whole concept here of just like, we're not sure exactly how this is going to line up. From Gunko's perspective, she seems to have some type of affection for Brook. And what we're going to see here in a second, or what Brook here is saying, is like he never wanted to see her again. He wanted to go his entire life without ever thinking about her again because of whatever, from what she did. Now, in the little flashback that we got from Gunko so far, it is this whole bit of like, father, her screaming for her father. So we're not exactly sure how that's going to line up. We're not sure yet. We're going to have to wait and see. Get to the next page, and we kind of get Gunko's reaction to hearing Brook screaming at her and yelling at her and bringing this up. And we have Imu's voice coming in going, Gunko, are thy memories beginning to return? And like, so it's like him trying to force his, keep his control over her. And Gunko shifts, and like we see this because we see Gunko's eyes go from like the ringed version of Imu's eyes that they've been every time we've looked at her since she's been possessed, back to her normal colored mismatch eyes for a second. Her hair does not get any shorter, but when we cut to these panels in a second, we're going to see that like the wings on her back are kind of not disintegrating, but they're getting like rips or tears in them. So they're not disintegrating, and I think that's supposed to be this reference to like, Imu, she's fighting against Imu's control. They're losing some of their control over Gunko. And she, like she's able to come back to herself momentarily, and she's like, Brook, you have to run. And she we see her like releasing her arrow power, and like all of the arrows that are wrapped around Brook are just like coming apart. They're loosening up. And he's like, what? And then we cut to where we see all the kids walking, and it's like, look, it's wiggling. And it's, the arrow is like hesitate, is like what the heck? Like, the arrow is not sure what it's supposed to do anymore because Gunko's power is wavering. And Brook, like, the arrows wrapped around Brook are like pulling off of him, and he's like, I'm free, and he's like falling out. And then we still see like the emu's possession over Gunko is like trying to force itself back in. And it's like, Gunko, thou attempts to move of thine own will. And she's like, Brook, and it's emu is trying to force their power back onto Gunko, force the control back over Gunko. And like we see like Gunko is fighting against this, and we see like the wings are kind of, as I said, they're kind of like ripping apart a little bit. And Brook is like, my leg got stuck again in the arrows, because like the arrows again, they're not sure exactly what to do. So he's trying to get his leg out of the arrows. And then Brook's like looking over, it's like, why did you tell me to run? I came to settle this matter. Who are you? And like Emu has taken back control over Gunko at this point in time. The wings are back to solid now. And the Gunko's eyes are back to being like the emu eyes. So we get that. And Emu has their Triton, and they fired, they aimed down at Brook, and they attacked Brook, and Brook's pulled up the shield that Gerd gave him as part of his outfit. He holds up the shield and blocks the shield, uses it to block the trident that's aimed at him, and he's got his sword in his hand. And Gunko Emu is, shut thy mouth. Who art thou to Gunko? And it's more said with like rage, like, shut thy mouth. Who art thou to Gunko? Like, who is this? How do you know Gunko? Because like Gunko's name translates to like army child or something like that. As in like a child specifically for the army type of thing. So we'll see what happens. Cut away from that, and we cut to Branch 8 again, but this time it's Usopp's group. Cut to Usopp's group, and he's like, woohoo, we're free, finally! And he's like, my mind powers did the trick, see? And Jinbei's just like, the arrows came loose for a moment. What happened? He's like, I'm not dealing with this right now, Usopp. We need to get out of here. And so Brook is mostly out of the arrows. Nami, Jinbei, and Usopp are all free from their arrows, but Robin is still trapped in the thorns. So Nami is now trying to like get the thorns off of Robin, and she's like, Robin's restraints are different. We have to get these thorns off her. And Robin's like, forget me, Nami. Focus on the children. So like, go help with the kids. And Usopp is, I think, still trying to use his mind powers, which is just weird. And Jinbei is like, I saw Ange slip away earlier, but I doubt she'll make it in time. West Village is way too far. So Ange is running, so she's trying to get there. And then we hear, Nami Swan! And Nami's like, oh, Sanji-kun. So that's helpful. We'll get to where we'll see Sanji in a moment, I think. Maybe. I don't know if we actually see... I don't remember if we see Sanji this chapter. But now we're cutting back to where we see the kids again. And this is Branch 8 near West Village. So this is, the villages. The villages where the Domi-Reversi Giants are. They're attacking Jarl right now. Dory and Bragi have attacked each other now because of Zoro. We'll see what happens there. Summers is here with the kids. He's riding on his like vine snake again, and he's like, ha 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 ha, keep moving, you brats. It's like the finish line is just over there. And because like we saw that like the arrow from Gunko kind of like wavered, but now that like Emu is back in control over Gunko, it's like back to being, the straight line. And Colin's like, you're one of those demons. One of the demons Elder Jarl mentioned, aren't you? We'll make you pay for this. Elbaf is really strong. You'll see. And like, as we have seen, Colin is very much the whole of... He is very headstrong, and he has a lot of pride when it comes to being, like, a child of Elbaf and everything else like that, and being, Scapper Gibbon's, son and all of that stuff. He takes a lot of pride in that. And I can't really blame him for that. But so this is like this nice bit here where he's like trying to like he's essentially trying to get Summers to like let him go so that way Colin can try to fight Summers, and then the other kids can try to get away if Summers lets go makes the thorns disappear. And Summers like, moron, we know all about how strong giants are. That's why we're after you. You're Gibbon's kid, right? And Colin's like, I'd shut up and unwrap these thorns if I were you. Yeah, let us go, is like what one of the others is shouting. It's just like, I dare you to face us like a warrior. So it's like Colin is essentially trying to be like, you are claiming you act like a warrior, blah 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 blah. If you're a real warrior, fight me. And yeah, Summers, prick that he is just like, hi, you're a real hoot. He's like, it's way too late for that. He's like, look, I can already see the harbor. Say goodbye to your homeland. This is the last time you'll ever see it. So we get to the harbor. We see the harbor over just, down this little part of the hill, down the slope. And we see the harbor, and we see one of the ships there that is all set and ready. And that's where the end of the arrow is from Gunko. And they're like, what? No way. You mean I'll never see Ma and Pa again? I don't want that. Someone help us. And then we have Summers on the tone dial talking to Emu, and he's like, hello, Great One? Killingham and I are about to complete our task. I'm dying to go home already, but do you have... It's like, I'm dying to go home already, but do you have any more bidding for me to attend to first? And we see the group of the adults that are showing up to try to save the kids, and we're hearing Colin, Ylva, Olaf. And so we have Colin, of course, because we know Ripley is part of this group. Ylva is Jarl's great-granddaughter, I believe. And then Olaf is actually Oimo's grandson. And then, of course, we know that Bjorn, he's like, we know the names of all these kids, but we know that Bjorn is Rhode's little brother, and we'll see Rhode in a moment. And Summers is just befuddled as to, like, how'd they get here? Weren't the dream demons meant to stop them? And, like, I love the fact that it's not just Ripley and Oimo here. Like, we saw this in the last chapter. There are a ton of other moms and dads that have shown up here to F Summers up here. It's like, you are trying to kidnap our children. We are going to make you effing pay for that type of thing. It's like, Summers, you didn't just poke a bear. You have poked an entire herd of mama and papa bears by taking their cubs. You are an idiot. And I know bears don't have herds or anything like that, but that is literally this concept here. It's like, you are an idiot, Summers. And they're like, Mommy, it's my mom, and the other is Grandpa Oimo. So it's, they're all running, all of them. It's just like, wait, above you, watch out. And they turn, and, we see the giant evil version of Nika, and it's like, it's Nika, the god of destruction. So as we know from the Hurley text and from the way that the other giants have talked, we know that different giants view Nika in different ways. You have the ones that view him as the sun god and the god of liberation and this god of freedom. And then you have ones that view him as the god of destruction and things like that. And this version of Nika, this evil version of Nika, is like the god of destruction version. And he comes down and he just like stabs his giant knife into the ground right in front of the group of the adults, cutting them off from the kids. And they're like, Mom, everybody, run! And they're like, from this, Nika, don't be silly. You're underestimating us. And we see a bunch of the moms, and I love this. And they're like, we come from a generation of warriors. And I love that we see these giant moms. And like, one of them has a sword, one of them has an axe, and one of them is in like her apron and has an effing katana that is probably quite a bit larger than Kaido's. And they just like, and then like we see Ripley as the one jumping into the air, and like Oimo is, I think we see Oimo there as well, and like they're both, they're all laying into this giant version of Nika, just like, yeah, no. This thing is not scary. This thing is not going to stand in the way of us saving the children. So we see that like they just like take this thing down, and like all the kids are like, they're so strong, like, oh my god, they're so strong. And the Nika MMA is glaring at them, and it keeps trying to stab the ground. And we cut a ways back, and we see Rhode, Gerd, and Goldberg have arrived from a different angle, but like near the scene. And they're like, hey guys, the kids are there, we won't make it in time even if we sprint. And so we cut to the last page of the chapter, or last 2 pages of the chapter, and we have Gerd and Goldberg getting their attacks ready. And Gerd has her axe, and Goldberg has his kanabo, And they're like, let's do it, Goldberg. Right. 2 generals. And Rhodes like, wait, let me join in. I'll save you, little brother. So they're like, fine, yeah, sure. And they do 3 generals, and they fire the Gokoku sovereignty, which is very similar to the sovereignty attack that we saw Dorian Bragi use against the giant goldfish, and of course very similar to the same type of sovereignty attack that we saw from Big Mom that she used on Whole Cake. I think she uses another version of it as well in Wano during Onigashima, I think. But we see them use this here, and it just fires straight through the middle of this fake Nika, and it just starts falling, and it's aimed like directly at Summers, which is just extra funny. And he's like summoning, he's got his like spiked sword thing, and he's just like, hey, back off before you crush me. And he's trying to attack it, and like I think he hits it and knocks it, and it lands like face first into the boat that was going to put the kids in. So yeah, so that boat gets knocked down. It's okay, mommy. Okay, mommy, just cough. Okay, mommy was just coughing. So okay, boo boo. I know, it's okay. I know you're a good baby. You're my good little pupper girl. Yes, you are. Up, up. Oh. Ooh. 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 Whoop, 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 whoop. I got to finish the video. I know you're a good boy. No, you're a good baby. Let me finish this, and then we'll go downstairs and snuggle while I edit, okay? Is that an acceptable trade? Well, I have to finish it either way, so we're on the last couple of panels. Let me finish this. So, the fake Nika gets knocked over and destroys the ship, pulls the ship down, destroys it, and then Summers is just like, oh shit. It's like the game takes an unexpected turn. It's like your game wasn't going the way, didn't end up going the way that you thought it would, did it, Summers? Ha ha. So I don't know what's going to happen here, because like the arrow went to the end of the dock and right to the ship. There is no ship there anymore. So does that mean like the kids are just going to stop at the end of the dock? That would technically be a reasonably safe place for them to stop, but that's not it's a slightly safer place for them to stop, but still not the best. And we don't know what's going to happen with the other arrows, plus, or what the arrow might have them do. And of course, they still have all the thorns on them. I would love it if a couple of the moms and stuff kind of got a couple of good hits in on Summers with, like, I'm quite certain most of them know at the very least armament hockey, and while they may not necessarily have Conqueror's hockey, letting them get a couple of good hits in on on Summers would be quite entertaining. Get quite entertaining, which would be very therapeutic. So we don't see anything from Sanji this chapter. We don't see Luffy any of this chapter. We heard from Sanji, but we didn't see where he was. He just like screams for Nami, and then we don't see him again. So we'll see how that ends up playing out in the end. Do not lick the outlet. You don't need to mess with the outlet. Let me finish this now. Boop. He's just like, I don't know what you're doing, Mommy. Come here. I know. I love you. Let me finish this, and then we'll go downstairs and snuggle while I edit, okay? You're a good baby. So, no break next week. We're supposed to have another chapter. I did have to pull out my Brooke shirt for this. I mean, what can I say? I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm assuming we're gonna get some bits of some fight between, Brook and Gunko, with like Gunko Emu, with Gunko trying to break through at some point in time. I saw a theory that was maybe Brook is going to be able to use his music to try to get through to Gunko, and that would be an interesting way of doing it. Um, or, we'll see what ends up happening. I kind of want some of the moms in Oimo to get a couple of good whacks in on Summers, to try to, save their kids. Um, try to figure up how to, get rid of the vines. They should be able to be cut. I mean, it's not like they're indestructible vines with thorns. It's just they're thorns, they're vines, but they should be able to, like, if they can figure out where they are, they can like cut the vines and then pull them off the kids. We'll see what ends up happening there. Not sure. Have to wait and see. Still don't know where Lilith and Bonnie are. I kind of want them to show up. We also didn't see Frankie this chapter either, because like the last time we saw Frankie, he was with Ripley's group, and then he's not here anymore. Because if he was, we would have seen him here and trying to do something to help the kids. I love that Oda gave the moms and such like their moment here to be like, yeah, no, yes, we were once warriors. We were from a warrior generation. We know all of these attacks. We're going to attack this freaking thing that is trying to hurt our children and cut it down to get to the other thing that is trying to hurt our children. That is trying to take our children away from us. Not happening. No, not happening. So we kind of get that. I love that Oda gave them the moment. Because like Oda is a very much a thing of like mom love, and seeing everything that we saw in the flashback with Ida, that is very much like this motherly love type of a thing coming to fruition here. So that's what we have here. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know this is out later on Thursday than it normally would be, but I had to work this morning, but my boss had no problem with me at least getting stuff prepped for the video. She's like, oh yeah, no, that's not a problem. So I really like my new boss. But, so we got that. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.